On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, do you like super funny local comics and dreaming of better days ahead for your Toronto Raptors? Well, we've got the episode for you, baby.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, April the 9th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can also find the show on Instagram, and you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, the Sicko Den, as they call it. All kinds of freaks in there, talking basketball, talking draft, talking Denver Nuggets. Great place to come hang out, talk ball among pals. Of course, you can subscribe for free as well to the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. Original words from me 5 days a week talking about your local basketball team. You also get Katie Heindel, League at Large pieces 4 times a week. Michael Shearer, basketball poetry, who's taken over the newsletter the last couple weeks with Katie on vacation. All great stuff. Go check it out, 100% free. And stick around at the end of the show. We'll remind you how you can go win some stuff by subscribing to the newsletter. All right, on today's show, it is the day of the final home game of the season for your Toronto Raptors, in which Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett seem to be playing, and then nobody else. Jamal Shed resting because I guess he's too good. Jacoby Walter dealing with some nagging injury stuff. No Scottie Barnes, no Jakob Poeltl. It's gonna be a banger. And here to talk about a season of tanking, a season of change, and hopefully to look ahead to a season of fun stuff next year is a returning champion of the podcast, a wonderful local stand-up comic who's got a special taping April the 16th at Comedy Bar on the Danforth, a great venue. I've seen him there before. It's where we first interacted. It's Andrew Ivimey. Andrew, how's it going, pal?
Hello, Sean. Thank you for having me on the weird, tanktastic end of the season. And, it's a transitionary season. It's rebirth. You know what I mean? Like a phoenix from the ashes. We shall rise. It's beautiful. We'll be good.
Here's hoping. I don't know how much more I can do this thing where the last 2 months of the season just don't mean anything. It's kind of driving me insane. But you're here to make me a little less insane because you're fun to talk to. We're going to get into stuff that we're looking forward to next season, little bright spots of optimism, things that have gone wrong this year that have kind of stuck in your craw. But off the top here, Andrew, I want to just kind of get your read as a member of this fan base. I feel like I have a pretty good finger on the pulse of the fan base because I'm entirely too online in entirely too many places. But I've talked about this a little bit. I think a lot of people in my life this year who are what I would classify as diehards have just kind of tuned out and said, talk to me next year or the year after when they're back in serious. I can't do this tanking thing anymore. I'm curious for you. You're probably more engaged, I'd say, than some of those people in my life based on our interactions and just kind of seeing how you talk about the team on the internet. But how has this tanking year affected your engagement as ostensibly a pretty diehard fan of this team?
It's definitely affected how much I am talking about what's going on this season. Like in terms of actual eyeballs engagement, I'm still watching every game. I'm still
a sicko. We love it.
I'm an absolute sick man. Absolutely. But like, some group chats have gone pretty quiet and thin, like a few group chats that are labeled Raptors or basketball doesn't necessarily have the hot flow of conversation that it had a couple of years ago. It's more like, whoa, look at Mobo, what he's doing tonight. And then just like a bunch of red marks and just nothing kind of after. I'm like, all right, yeah, no, I see where we're at. I might have come in with the wrong hot vibe for how we're all feeling and definitely paying attention to Mobo, right? So, it's definitely, there's less engagement across the board this season, but I'm still a sicko. I'm still there. I'm still having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, so what has brought you joy this year? I do think there's this sort of, I think maybe incorrect classification of this season as like a totally lost year, where I think like the first 20 or so games get kind of forgotten. Yeah, they were like 7-15 out of the gate, but those were like a really competitive 20-something games. And then December happened, everything kind of fell off a cliff, and that I think was very obviously the low point of the year. And they've been like winning games since the calendar turned over. I believe they're 21-19 since their 8-31 start. And, obviously, a lot of that is inflated by a March schedule against some of the worst teams that have ever been put together to play on a basketball court professionally. But I don't get the sense just from like the general fan base that there's an appreciation of the good stuff that's happened this year. Help me out here, Andrew. I feel like there must be some positive kernels that you're kind of latching onto that have kind of kept you going and tuning in every single night like the sicko you are.
I mean, like the positive stories that I'm latching onto are pretty much the same positive stories you're latching onto, which is like development of Shed, Mobo, and Walter. Like it's just been really fun to watch. Like they're having a good time out there. And not only are they having a good, like normally you don't get both simultaneously, the growth of a player and a player who looks like they're having joy in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like normally growth is something that is happening through the tough times. And these are tough times per se, but they're not showing it on the court. I actually do feel like the vibes are good with a couple of players that I'm very excited to kind of watch grow and shine and to see what they've been doing. And like I always kind of find those players, no matter what is going on that season, for right or wrong, I find someone where it's like, I like you, I'm rooting for you, and sometimes nothing happens of that. Sometimes it's DJ Carton and Wieskamp. But but I don't think this is that. I have at least like segmented my brain to be like, Andrew, this is the delusional, you're having fun, and I'm screaming "Unleash the Weiss" at games, or or the sincere like, oh no, actually, Shed is going to be a good 8-person rotational player in a playoff competitive team, which I think is legitimately what's happening right now. Which is a great thing to see and look out for, and especially for someone like if you've been a fan of the team for a while. You see so many flashes, of Fred in Shed, of the you can see that we've seen on our team that leap of that 6th or 7th piece that just kind of keeps moving up. Will Shed ever have that ceiling? Probably not. Like that's a pretty extreme example, but it's part of the hope that's kind of built into the DNA of being a Raptors fan at this point, of watching someone and you're like, is that the next Fred? You're like, is it Malachi Flynn? Like whatever it might be. That's the sicko delusion that we all have, but I think we're closer to the delusion being reality this season,
Yeah, it feels like it's hard to say because it's still kind of new in this era of like getting back to being good at player development, but it does feel a little bit like the mid 2010s where like the delusion was kind of founded in a way where it's like, well, they just keep on turning these guys into good NBA players. So buying into each and every one of them on some level felt kind of normal and understandable and not sick, deluded behavior because they just kept on turning them out. And then you get that fallow period kind of starting with like Dewan Hernandez and Jalen Harris and Malachi Flynn. And then you have your end of season guys who would pop up and look like a guy for a hot second and then not be. Sorry, Freddie Gillespie, to call you out and put you on the spot. But yeah, it feels like with Walter, Shed, and Mobo, and even Jamison Battle, who, we'll see if he can hang around and kind of do more than just can stand still threes, because that's kind of the gig in the modern NBA. If you want to be a rotation player, you have to do more than just one thing really well. But I don't think it's out of pocket to say, hey, all of these guys have a shot of being something. Whether it's Mobo, I kind of wrote earlier this week in the newsletter about how I think as like a backup 5, he's kind of showing off a skill set despite being smaller in terms of like traditionally listed height. He does a lot of stuff that like a rotational 7th, 8th, 9th man can do. And as a backup 5, that helps elongate your lineups and give you some switchability, things like that. I think Walter has like future starter written all over him. He's been a thrill to watch down the stretch here. And then Shed, like while I think he probably tops out as a really good backup, finding a really good backup with the 45th pick that you got in a salary dump from the Sacramento Kings, pretty damn sweet. And so, like, do you feel that way as well a little bit where, yes, it's still very early days and player development is not predictable at all, but do you feel a little more grounded and confident in your belief in these dudes that maybe you have over the last few years?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I like I said, like I know that last few years it's like finding the fun, being a little bit delusional. This year I'm like, the results are actively there. And granted, like you were mentioning, it's been a March versus tanktastic team, so the stats certainly are a little bit askew in terms of what's going on in a relatively bad East with one of the easiest schedules imaginable. But still, like it is there, and it's nice to see the development from the Raptors, which is something that we used to pride ourselves in, and it seems strong now. And no matter what plays out, I feel pretty confident that the majority of these players that we are working in this March, I don't feel like I'm watching anyone's last NBA season, which I certainly
there's no Jamias Ramseys out there.
Yeah, like I've certainly felt that previous years where I'm like, I'm watching someone's last flounder or like on their way out, or like, and bless them, even someone on their I never want to be too disparaging about any professional NBA player where it's like, if you played 3 minutes on any night, you're still one of the top 550 people in the world at the job that you do, which is something that very few of us can say. I'm not one of the top 500 comedians in the world, so I don't want to talk too much shit. But yeah, I don't think I'm watching anyone's last season, and whether or not it's everybody continuing forward with the Raptors in some way, I do feel like that a lot of these people have shown enough flashes that there will be another team that offers them something to see if that seed can develop and grow. So we're watching people who are creating future opportunities for themselves, which I think is really fun and nice. And I think we'll probably get into it in maybe the optimism for next year section. But as well, I think like one of the things that was exciting for me this year was Darko's extension as well. That actually changed my core temperature. That made me kind of look at things quite a bit differently as well. So there's some good stuff there.
Yeah, we'll pick up on that. I also want to get your thoughts on tanking poorly, because that's the only thing anyone can think about these days. All of these young players being good, they're just better than all these really bad teams. That feels like a good thing, as I wrote about yesterday in the newsletter. But are you sitting there sour that they might be 7th instead of 5th in the draft lottery? We'll get into that. Talk about the Ingram trade and what it means for next year. Look ahead to 2025-26. A bunch more coming up on today's show with our pal Andrew. Do that in a sec. Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health. But traditional in-person therapy can be expensive, often ranging from $100 to $250 per session. That's where BetterHelp comes in. With online therapy, you get quality care at a price that makes sense, saving you time and money. And therapy just isn't for life's tough moments. It can help you with everyday stress, figuring out coping skills, setting boundaries, all kinds of good stuff. I know a lot of people who have benefited from therapy, and recently I have myself started to benefit from it. I'm welcoming a child into the world soon, and I just want to kind of make sense of the world, which is terrifying at times or all the time, and want to kind of know how to best put myself in a good spot headspace wise so I can be the best for my son in a couple of months. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Back at it here with Andrew Ivimey, a lovely, hilarious local stand-up who is, again, taping a special at Comedy Bar Danforth, which is a great space. April the 16th. There are 2 shows, 7 to 9 p.m. Get your tickets now. Andrew is hilarious. I saw you open for Ian Carmel, I think, back in the day. Another fellow NBA sicko who does
that's
comedy.
Right. Another NBA sicko, a Portland, a Trailblazers sicko, which we've kind of bonded over that a few different times when chatting with Ian Carmel, where he's like, Toronto, the Portland of the East. And I'm like, the Trailblazers, the Raptors of the West. Hello, sir.
So let's pick up where we were at, tanking stuff. Obviously, the team has kind of declared its intentions very obviously with its resting of players and, just the general throwing in of the towel down the stretch against this very easy schedule. Seems like they're about to lock in 7th in the lottery. All they need is 1 loss or 1 Spurs win from the remaining handful of games. Seems like that'll be locked in. Are you of the mind that they wasted a glorious, beautiful, perfect 8-31 start when it comes to, the tank this year? Do you feel like they missed an opportunity to, have as high a pick as possible? Or are you of the normal brain that the lottery ain't saving you? It's designed to make you upset. And it's actually all right that, hey, these good players are winning a couple extra games here. That feels like a good problem to have going into a year where the team is trying to hit the gas pedal next season.
I have a normal brain.
Woo!
Certainly. I am not of the some people jump that starter pistol real soon with the like anytime that like a season's off to a rough start, people are like tank for the pick, tank for the pick. And I've just never been of the mindset that it's that valuable. Because it's like it's it's still a lottery. It's never a guarantee. And even in terms of projections, it's never a guarantee. Look at and draft classes for most years of the NBA, and it doesn't quite play out how everybody expects it to play out in terms of value.
We're all idiots. Yeah,
we're all idiots. Even the team of people paid professionally to not be idiots will sometimes be idiots, and things are unpredictable. But I think one thing that is more predictable is that I've never been a like tank for the draft pick type of guy, because I've just always been a like winning culture is so much more important around a team, and it is way harder to winning is not a light switch you on or off.
Yeah.
Like it is not. You just can't be like, all right, hey, that thing that you have spent your entire young career getting to the NBA only ever focused on. Hey, let's turn that switch off in the locker room. We're not worried about winning this season. And if you do manage to do that, it's not flicking on smoothly in the future. You know what I mean? Like you're getting a draft pick and then you're maybe rebuilding a bunch of pieces, or chances are you're also probably rebuilding coaching staff, because the level of just morale and other problems that have come associated with it have created a mess. So I think it is way harder to fix winning culture than it is to fix a bad draft pick. Bad draft picks can be fixed within a season. Losing culture takes a decade to completely swing the momentum of a franchise.
Yeah, and I feel like there's this sort of rush from the other side of, but look at the Thunder, and it's like, I mean, the Thunder, we don't like to talk about this because we all love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and he's incredible and all of that, but like the Thunder were gifted a historic windfall by a Clippers team that was being held over a barrel by Kawhi Leonard and just had to give up everything to get Paul George. Like that is an irreplicable start for any rebuild. And that was the reason they were able to power out of their thing where they stunk for a few years so gracefully. It's just like, okay, well, you give us all this extra stuff to work with, all this margin for error that we now have because we have half the league's picks for the next half decade. Like, yeah, that's going to make things easier. It's not replicable. It's totally an outlier building case. And yeah, there's a lot of cases where you just kind of get stuck in the muck and, you become the Detroit Pistons who, yes, they're good this year. Great. Where did the last 15 years go? Right. Like that you don't get that time back. And so for me to have the Raptors winning a couple extra games than maybe quote unquote, they should be winning right now because they have interesting young players who are too good to lose to the Ricky Councils of the world. Like I think, I would much rather be the Raptors going into next season, adding the 7th or 8th pick to the mix with all these other guys who exist versus having nothing going on and getting, say, Dylan Harper 2nd overall and plopping him onto a team with nothing in terms of support. I think it's not really a debate to me as to what situation I'd rather be in, as much as it'd be awesome to get a Dylan Harper or a Cooper Flagg. Maybe the Raptors get both. That would be very, very cool. But yeah, as far as let's pivot to the Ingram stuff, because obviously he's not playing. That's been kind of ruled out. Even yesterday, there was hope that Darko said last Friday there was hope that he would get up to contact in practice this week. Doesn't sound like he's going to get there. And so, yeah, fully shut down. He's not going to play this season. That was expected, I think, by a lot of people when the trade was first made, especially when you looked at the schedule down the stretch and just, what are you even learning here when you're playing against the Hornets and the Sixers and the Wizards every other night? But how do you feel about the Ingram trade? Were you pro Ingram trade when it happened? I, of course, on this podcast did like a complete 180 over the course of a few days after kind of thinking about it. And I do think Scottie Barnes kind of having this really bad second half offensively has even made me feel better about the acquisition of Ingram as a guy to help support what Scottie's doing and what this whole team is doing going into next year. The cost of acquisition was very low. Talked myself into it, as we're wont to do here when things happen. We have nothing to do but talk ourselves into things. But yeah, where are you at on the Ingram deal? Are you happy it happened? Are you looking forward to it? Are you had to give reservations, misgivings? So what's your read on the deal?
I'm generally happy about it. Like, I think it is. I think it was a good deal. Like we are a better team. We benefited from it. Was it, the deal of the century? Was I sitting at home being like, man, if we can get Ingram, this is it for us? Like, no, like it wasn't the number one piece that I was looking at, and it wasn't what I thought was going to shift the momentum entirely. But it is something that pretty immediately I was like, that's good value. That's good return on investment for what we've got out of that. And then the more and more time passes, the more I've kind of grown into the idea of how he's going to function on next year's team, which I agree with, like what you were saying about Scottie. One thing that we all love Scottie, and we've loved watching him play, even in some of the lean times or the rougher offensive stats that he's had. But one benefit of Scottie is that he's been really good, or at least relatively good, at kind of everything on the court, and we've kind of thrown everything at him. And a lot of people have been impressed by that, to be like, wow, like, he's really good no matter what kind of the scheme is. And I'm like, yeah, but I would actually like to see him narrowed into a scheme a little bit more, like to have a little bit less to do on the court. And I feel like Ingram actually might be an opportunity for him to do that, to remove some stuff from his bag, frankly, and just kind of laser focus in on a few smaller details of the game. So I think it could be a really beneficial thing for Scottie to be playing with Ingram, who's a player that I like. Like, and especially like I was saying earlier with the Darko extension, like looking at all of these pieces and Ingram kind of being a big one of them for next season. Maybe a couple months ago, I was looking at it like, okay, this might work. I'm going to go into next season cautiously optimistic. There's good pieces, and we'll see if they work together. If they do, awesome. And if they don't, it's just kind of like, oh, dang, those pieces were worth the effort. But with the Darko extension, there's part of me that's like, okay, I think actually we've got a scheme, and like on paper, we're ready to go. I actually think that shows that pieces are kind of locking in behind the scenes a little bit smoother and easier than anyone expected them to. So that gives me more hope for how Ingram's even going to fit onto this team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Darko's the buy-in king, right? Like he's I think been able to kind of keep the ship steady and righted despite all kinds of turmoil and uncertainty, and plenty of potential for things to spiral out of control over the last couple seasons, where you have like competing egos and contract situations and new versions of the team and struggle and all of that. And I just think like everyone seems to be kind of on the same page. As much as it's been a losing season, I think they've kind of maintained the integrity of the vibes about as well as you can. And I think Ingram genuinely is excited to kind of tailor his game to a new team after playing for the Pelicans for as long as he did, kind of doing one thing. We have to see it in practice. Is he actually going to commit to taking more threes? Or him and Scottie going to be able to kind of find an ability to sort of quit the overlap stuff they do? And again, like you said, kind of narrow into defined roles that kind of help make them into a better than the sum of its parts type of team. But I buy Darko as a guy who can get that buy-in from guys. And I'm with you. Like, fully endorse him being around and kind of getting the vote of confidence. I think it's been a really difficult hand he's been dealt. He's done about as good a job navigating it over the last couple of years as I think he could have asked for. And yeah, Ingram, Scottie, like Ingram, Scottie quickly. I think those three guys plus Jakob Poeltl as just this steady force. This is not going to be the most like top end talent rich team in the world next season, but I don't know, man. There's a lot of power in just having like a lot of pretty good players, and we're going to pick that thread up coming back on the other side, get into what excites us about next year. And if Andrew has anything from this season that's really pissed him off, we'll give him a chance to vent that and get it off his chest as well. I think a Chris Boucher related inspired monologue might be in store. We'll do that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. You can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match and retirement contributions with Robinhood Gold. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY in your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national savings average. Account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Back at it here with Andrew Ivimey, closing things out as we talk about the future, 2025-26, a hopeful return to fun, vibrant, enjoyable Toronto Raptors basketball that doesn't leave us twiddling our thumbs through March and April, just waiting to run out the clock as the date of the draft lottery becomes the most important one on our calendars. Andrew, what has you looking forward to next season? Like, are you, and I'm curious, like your general sort of level of expectation. I'm on record on this show thinking they can win like 45 games with this mix of guys next year. You get some health, obviously. It's a big part of it with Brandon Ingram. Do they have the injury insurance behind a guy like Jakob Poeltl to, uphold that throughout an 82-game season? All big questions, but I think everything goes right, or like 80% of things go right, which hell, they're due for something like that after the last few years. I feel like this is a team that can certainly, if not be in the top six, contend for the top six down to the final days of the season, which is very exciting considering what we've been subject to over the last few years. Where are you at? What's your level of optimism going into 2025-26? And what brings you the optimism if you got it?
My level of optimism, my level of realism kind of out of the gate is that I do expect a rough start to the season.
Okay, sure.
Just because I'm like with the amount of injuries that we've had, and even just kind of like lack of play time outside of practice for what the starting four before even adding Ingram to the puzzle has been pretty minimal play time. And then adding Ingram to that, it's just practice isn't NBA basketball. Like it isn't games. So
Totally.
it's like I'm expecting a rough kind of like, how are we all meshing start to the season? Optimistically, I'm like, it might be a rough first 10 is kind of what I'm bracing myself for, but I think it's a winning team. Like it's an above 500 team. And yeah, like the most optimistic of me is like a 4 or 5 seed. The realistic of me is like, maybe we're looking at a play-in team next season.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
If I'm hampering down expectations and not trying to be just a ball of optimism powering through a computer screen,
Yeah, like I think there's certainly a world in which like the Orlando Magic figure out, guards, they're important. Let's get one of those. And, maybe the Hawks kind of take a jump with Jalen Johnson back and healthy and Zachary Risachet looking like a pretty real guy and Dyson Daniels being a maniac. Like, as much as I'm never really going to buy a Trae Young-led team, that could totally be a recipe for a top 6 seed in this Eastern Conference for sure. But yeah, like I think it's not misguided to feel pretty good about what this team can bring. And I talked about it a little bit before the break. Like I think the big thing for me is it's been a long time, Andrew, since the Raptors had just like a lot of good players. It's been a lot of, we have 4 or 5 guys we really can count on, and they usually win their minutes. And then after that, oh boy, it's an adventure. I think next season they're projecting to have like 9, potentially 10 credible NBA rotation players, guys who can fill in the case of injury in basically every case except for Jakob Poeltl. And maybe they figure out a way to address the backup center spot. Maybe they draft someone like a Kaman Malawach in the draft, and that fills in that need for a while. There's all kinds of permutations the team could take after this summer. There's the RJ Barrett question and all of that, but just the concept of a lot of good players is like a good recipe for regular season wins. I don't know about you, Andrew. I find that that's just like one of the most fun types of teams to root for. What do you think there? Like, I think there's some, obviously when you're a title contender, there's its whole own thing, but just like a team with like a bunch of dudes that likes each other, that is good because everyone is good. And, the 2019-20 title defense season really stands out. A lot of those Kyle DeMar seasons from, 2014 through 2018 stand out, obviously, as examples of this. I'm a huge, like, grit and grind Grizzlies guy. I really liked the Dame, Wes Matthews, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blazers teams back in the day. I'm a sucker for a team that just is, like, good through the power of group competence. What about you? Is that a type of team you vibe with?
Hell yeah. It's entertaining.
We get along for a reason.
It's good basketball to watch. It's good basketball. Like when a team is not placed entirely on the back of one player, then you get consistent basketball, which win or lose, that consistency, like maybe you see, someone pops off one game, the next game they kind of quiet back down, but someone else kind of steps up. And you're just seeing this little 10-point differential between who's getting what in the starting five. But usually then for win or loss, you are seeing a box score with a plus minus of 3 for every game, which are just nail biter games and are entertaining. Even if you're a 200 team at the end of the season, you're like, we're 200 and we averaged -4. You know what I mean? It's that level of we were a 3 and a free throw away from winning these. That level of God, that is exciting. It's fun. It's engaging. And I want to see that level of excitement and that level of enthusiasm come back to the stadium as well, because things have been pretty quiet and a little sleepy in-house. And I think a consistent team of people who are just good at basketball, it won't get the media coverage that teams with, MVP candidate, all-star highlight reel type of things will get, which also feels on par for the history of being a Raptors fan, of being not getting the media coverage that some other teams might get, because we have a really even team with a bunch of people who all have each other's backs and kind of pick up for one another's failures on any given night. That's what we have the potential to have, which is one that doesn't get as much attention or highlights, but gets the stadium lit and is exciting to watch every single game. And I want that.
Have you seen how dumb national discourse is about basketball teams? I'm perfectly okay if they don't want to talk about the Toronto Raptors. Come listen to this show instead, please. It's just watching fun, competitive hoop, man. It's all I've ever wanted. I feel like Zendaya in Challengers. I just want to see good basketball. I
horny.
Probably won't go to the horny for good basketball. Probably won't go to the lengths that Zendaya does in that film to procure good tennis, but don't even know how that would work in my context. But man, oh man, do I just want to see.
We all believe in you, Sean. You can do it.
The credential somehow going out the window, I think. If go watch Challengers. What a great movie. Damn. Anyway, Andrew, I promised I'd give you space to talk about a thing that maybe has not been your favorite part of this season. I know you're a Chris Boucher guy. I think he's still on the team. He hasn't played in months. He's just kind of there. And, the future seems like he's not going to be on the team. But I also have this theory of maybe they've had a conversation where it's you're going to be our new Udonis Haslem. You're going to be around forever on a minimum. We're not going to play you down the stretch because you have the best on-offs of anyone on the team. We can't afford that right now, but don't worry. We're not going to totally sink your NBA future because we have a deal lined up for you in the summertime to just come back and be cheap bench depth for us. And, a sage, wise veteran. Maybe that theory is completely off base, but I know, Andrew, you've not been thrilled about the way Chris Boucher has or has not been utilized down the stretch. The floor is yours to say what you want on the matter.
The man deserves better. Chris Boucher deserves better. He deserves respect on his name, the last of our NBA champions. And on top of that, he is good. He is a good player, a great plus minus, a really good explosivity off the bench. Yeah, he had a few games there when he was playing where he did come out, get a little wild, and stink up the place. Who doesn't? But he's coming out with energy and enthusiasm. And I really like that about Chris. And I feel like that's something that I've always really liked about Chris Boucher, is that it feels like since we lost Norman Powell, he was a great explosive bench player, and nothing but love and respect for everything Norm has done since as well. But Chris, on a sleepy night, the stadium's a little quiet, and there have been moments where it's even our starters, I'm it looks like your heart isn't in it. You're just kind of yeah, this ain't the season, whatever it is. And then Chris Boucher comes off the bench like a demon out of hell, as if he just slapped the entire front office before coming out there and was no, we ain't tanking. and then jumps and like rejects a 3-point shot and sends it into the 300s. And it's like, if you rejected it that hard, you easily could have just grabbed it, brought it down, and maintained possession. But no, he wants everyone to get uncomfortably excited about the game of basketball. And I've been in the stadium for a couple of those where I'm just like, that wasn't even the right play, but I'm ready to rip my seat out of the ground. I am excited. And I think that there is a value for that. And I mentioned Norm because Norm used to be that as well. Like he would come out, he would, set up in the corner, but then he'd go baseline drive with like a crazy dunk. And then suddenly like the energy has completely changed within the game. And I feel like we haven't had a player like that except for Chris Boucher. So I really like that. He's got a weird shooting form. His threes should not be landing as much as they do. The mechanics are nasty, but it's working. But it's working for him. And yeah, he's our vet guy. I think he deserves better. I think at first they were kind of holding him back because it really felt like it's like, no, you're not willing to lose and kind of go into the tank a little bit. Then I think there was some legitimate sickness. And then I just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. If it's a half and half of we are going to bring you back as the vet bench guy, the culture guy, or we're letting you go so you can just kind of keep sitting out the rest of the season. I'm like coin flip now as to what's going to happen with Chris Boucher. And weirdly, I think that like, I don't know what he's listed at for tonight's game, but I think tonight is going to be a huge indicator where if he plays any minutes tonight, I'm like, oh, he's not coming back. Like that's them being like, go out there, wave goodbye. You're our last champion. If he doesn't play any minutes tonight, I'm like, well, that you better be signing him as the vet culture guy on the bench, because don't sit him for the final game. If he is healthy and capable of playing, don't sit him for the final game for everything that he's given this team. You know what I mean?
I hadn't considered that as a read between the lines thing to keep an eye on tonight, but I will now be very much watching Chris Boucher on the bench to see if he's ripping off the sweats at any point to hop in. At the very least, Andrew, like if they get that one win from the Spurs or one loss from themselves, we got to have one last Chris Boucher empty the clip game to end the year, like Sunday against the Spurs. Friday against the Mavericks? One of those nights, just like, all right, the lottery spot's secured. He can do no damage to the place in which they will be on lottery night. Go take 30 shots, Chris, and have the time of your life. What a world.
Release the chains. Dream. Let him out there.
Yeah. Really glad that we could have you unleash yourself on this here podcast. Andrew, weird way of putting it, but that's fine. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man. It was great to have you back. Again, tell people all about your special recording at Comedy Bar. Give them all the deets once again so they can get tickets and go see you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm filming a stand-up comedy special at Comedy Bar Danforth, and it is on April 16th. So if you go to comedybar.ca or hit me up on any of my socials, all my socials are at Ivimey, Ivimey. If you're watching, you see it on the screen. And I'll have links for it everywhere. But yeah, it's I've recorded 2 audio comedy albums before. This is going to be my first video filming of a special. It's a fantastic venue. It's also a double bill of comedians. So for the price of one ticket, you get to see me and another fantastic comedian, Craig Fay. We're both filming our specials on the same evening. So get tickets. We want the room to be filled with just like hype people who are there to have fun and yeah, just a silly night. Mostly silly jokes is kind of where I'm at. There's like 2 political things, and then after that we get pretty chill and silly.
Perfect. Everyone go check out Andrew. He's the best. A week from tonight, Comedy Bar Danforth. Buy your tickets, 7 to 9 p.m. I've seen Andrew before. You will not regret going. Of course, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend to this podcast. It's very much appreciated when you support however you support. You can go to the newsletter, QR code on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the link in the description of the podcast. You'll also find the link to the tickets for Andrew's show in the description today as well, if you want to just click on right through and buy your seats. And we'll be back again on Thursday to talk about the last home game of the season, Fan Appreciation Night. So much appreciation will be going on as nobody plays, but that's fine. We'll have it covered for you here on the show tomorrow. Thanks so much for rocking with us. Talk to you soon. Andrew, it's been a long time since I hit this shot. It's been trying times. I got to get it to go. I was so close yesterday. Here we go. Oh, damn Getting closer. Getting the line back. Maybe tomorrow.
Next season.
See ya.